Hi everyone, I'm making this video just to give you a quick update on the progress that I'm making with the Froobit framework. If you haven't seen previous videos, if you haven't been following this channel, then gonna give you a quick introduction. So the Froobit framework is a JavaScript-based game framework. It uses P5.js. So if you're familiar with P5, then this should be very easy to work with, and it was my main goal to make a framework which will allow you to use the simplicity of P5 together with some more powerful structures for creating games. And basically this is the latest example made with Froobit framework, and as you can see, I can move left or right. I can also jump on these platforms, and this example actually has a full integrated physics, so I can create a lot of rocks right now, and you can see how this is performing well at almost 60 FPS all the time. And yeah, like you can jump around, and this example also has a parallax parallax background, and there should I have to do some improvements, but all in all, this is very easy to make currently with the current implementation of the framework, and I'll jump to the code right now to show you how this is actually created. So if we go to the code, you will see that this is basically the entry point of our game. We define assets, so we basically only have images. In the future, you can add files, sounds or fonts. Also, we have controllers. So basically, every piece of our game should have a controller assigned to it, and in controller you can do all kinds of logic stuff, like you can subscribe to certain events, and when you define controllers array, you just call framework with controllers and options, and in this case options contains assets and scene. Scene is 1200 pixels wide and 700 pixels in height. So this is our scene, and then you basically call an int method and everything works. What's great about the framework is that it allows you to hot reload your game. So if I change the height to something like 650 and I save, Webpack Dev Server will recompile everything and refresh your tab. So currently I'm not watching at localhost dev version, so let's open it. So the game will always be listening on port 4000, and let me show you what we can do. We can really shrink the canvas to like 500. And if we go back to the browser, we should see that app tab is reloading, and the size of the canvas is smaller. So it really makes development easier. You don't have to basically you don't have to do anything regarding including files and refreshing tab and so on. So let me go to some of our entities. For example, character is maybe the most complicated, and when I say complicated, it's really relative, and maybe rock. So this is the code for our rock entity, and basically in this example you can create a lot of rocks, and they obey the laws of physics basically. And so each rock is created in initial position, which you give when you create new rock, and then you can define physics for the rock in the physics method. So basically, if you don't call this method, then rock will basically be just a statically rendered stuff on your screen, but when you define physics, then it will be added to the physics world, and it will actually obey the laws of the physics in this example, as you can see. And physics method accepts a parameter object which contains a whole bunch of methods, and one of those is shape. And if you're familiar with Box2D, this framework actually uses Box2D rewrite called planckjs, and it has a fixtures, and shape is basically a synonym for fixture in this case, and you use it just like this. So you call shape, and then you pass a callback function, and it will provide Planck instance for you. So Planck is basically an instance with which you can do stuff, physics stuff, and then you can create like circle fixture or basically shape, and then you can set the radius to be like 14 pixels, and you can also set the initial position. And let me show you. If I comment this, dynamic method basically sets the body type to dynamic, and it will be influenced by the forces of nature. And if you now click on the screen, you can see that since it's not dynamic body, nothing happens. But as soon as I uncomment this part and we go back to our example, we will be able to create rocks, and they will fall under the force of gravity. So let me refresh this. This is the entire code for the rock. There is also a controller part, and the controller part is really not that complex. It's just we create a new rock on the position, which we calculate here, and we do that on mouse click. So when the mouse has been clicked, we just we use some camera information to determine, and the mouse position to determine the position of the rock, and then we just add it to a renderer. So it is that simple. So you have almost everything in here you can get from the parameter object as well. So each controller has parameter object, which contains a lot of methods that you can use to write your game, and I'm using just a subset of those. And you can see that I'm calling on event for mouse click, and mouse events are also defined in the Froobit framework core package. And what I also do is I don't just export this controller as it is. I add camera object higher order controller, and this might be an advanced stuff, but once you get it, you will start using it a lot, because you can share same behavior between different entities in the game. So when I say camera object, it will start to behave like an object, and what it means is basically if I move the character, which is a target, so the target is something that camera will always follow. So if I move left or right, the target is always in the center, but the object is moving. It's translated actually relative to the target. So in this example, what we actually see is that everything is moving except the target. So the rocks are moving, and let me show you what happens. Sorry, I just accidentally opened BS Player. Let me go back. Yeah, so instead of this, we could just export default. Let me fix that. Rock controller, and let's comment this. And now we should see. Let me check what happens here. So yeah, it's compiled successfully, and you see that the black platforms are moving relative to the target, but the rocks are up in the corner, and the body of the rock is in the right position, but what we render is not. So yeah, this is how just one line of code. So basically this line of code can change the behavior of this example. And you can see that now if I click, yeah, the rocks are here and they're not on the position 0, 0. So I'm running out of time since it's almost 10 minutes into the video, but I will just open character controller quickly to show you the code. So basically this is the code that controls this little fellow, and it has different. So this is a controller part actually. So you can see that we're calling camera track character, and this one line of code ensures that our character will always be followed by the camera. And then we have just a simple code for movements like arrow right and left and spaces for jumping. So pretty easy code. It has less than 50 lines of code, and it's actually just a switch case for the key handling. But the character code is what is interesting, and it has less than 100 lines of code. And why I'm repeating how many lines of code it has, it's really not that important, but I'm trying to make this as simple as possible, so you focus on making the game and adding new features easily. And I really want people to feel this difference when making a game, when everything is simply here and accessible. Like this is our character, and physics code for the character has I don't know, 15 lines of code, and this is the shape, this is the bounding box, it's a rectangle. We define friction restitution. Again, I'll repeat. So if you are familiar with Box2D, then this is perfectly clear for you. If you're not, check out Box2D. It's great library for physics. And then you just say dynamic. So this body will behave as you would expect in the physics world. And yeah, this is the code for jumping, and this is something that I'm currently working on. So the framework does not yet support ground checking, so you should be able to check if you are standing on the ground. And since I'm still working on this, I'm using set timeout. It's really dumb, but it currently supports this example. So you see that if I jump and then I can jump again in the air, so it's not that good. But and yeah, this is basically walk right, walk left, and walking. 3 methods that are practically the same. We just set a different velocity, and we then use and we change the state of the character. So I defined the state of the character up here before I defined the character itself. So I said it has idle, walking, and jumping state. And in the render method, if you're not familiar with the Froobit, you know that the render method is the most important method. It draws everything, and basically this render method will draw our character, and render method accepts p instance, and then you can do everything like you do in p5. So you just set image mode to center to align with Box2D, with planckjs actually. And then you use scaling for we use this when we walk left and right. We scale negative to invert the picture, and then basically one switch case which runs different animations. And how you create animations? Well, this is the code for animation. So you pull the assets which you included in the main file. So by the name, you can do that like this. So I'm using ES6 destructuring here, and then I create animations for idle state, walking state, and jumping state. I pass the P instance. I say how many states each sprite sheet has. So if I go here and I I open, let's say, idle. Idle has two images actually in one. So idle state should have two columns, and framework is still not able to actually determine how many images are there, but I will maybe add this feature later. And this would be it for this video. I hope I cleared up some things, and I will continue to make videos like these as I add new features. The release of Froobit is actually delayed, but since I'm working alone on this, it might be till the end of the month, but I'm not sure. And this would be it for this video. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and see you in the next one.